Hey everyone, David the Wolf Boy here, and we just got episode 4 of Sonic Presents Chaotix Casefiles. And today is Wednesday, February 18th, one day after the podcast was released. I couldn't record yesterday, which was Tuesday the 17th, because I had stuff going on. So, as always, I listened to this both on YouTube and Spotify. And let's get right into it. This episode is called Assault on Gun Base X, or GUN, however you want to call it. Some people say GUN, and some people say gun. I know I say gun, and Keanu Reeves says gun in Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So, as always, it begins with Sonic and Vector locked up in cages, not sure how they're going to be broken out. Maybe they'll be broken out in the final episode, however many episodes there will be. So, they complain about thirst in the previous episode, and they are given canteens of water, even though Sonic can't fucking swim and he's afraid of it. And then Eggman's like, get on with it. Yes, get on with it! At this point, I'm not even gonna bother anymore! So in the previous episode, we finally got the voices of Tangle and Whisper. Tangle and Whisper don't return in this episode, but there are a lot of twists and turns that you may want to sit down and find out about. So they walk through the dark abandoned streets of Spiral Hill, again looking at the wiki page, and they're wondering how Gun is heavily involved in the thefts of the astroscopic lenses. I cannot speak English this morning. So, Gon has been particularly protective of his public image, especially after its humiliating defeat in the war. I think it's the Sonic Forces War, yeah. Not the Dark Brotherhood of Solaris or anything else, like the war between the Dark Brotherhood and the Golden Eagles. Boots, 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 moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. And yes, I had to mention that eerie poem from 28 years later. So, Vector argues that this is why they should act now, with Gun still rebuilding, respawning, and recruiting, and they'll never see the Chaotix coming. And so Vector, SBO, Charmy have to raid a gun base just so it can fuck shit up. And SBO is trying to find out if there is a gun base nearby. And then Charmy takes out his phone and pulls up a base that's not far from where they are. The grand opening, if you will, complete with a marching band of their own, with tubas. Because clumsy Charmy knocked over a crate of tubas and created a ruckus. Their mission, should they choose to accept it, get into the gun base, search for files on the astroscopic lenses and the person stealing them, and get out. And we know the thief is a shapeshifter. And from what I've done research on during the previous episode, the thief has to be Mimic, the shapeshifter. Kind of like Mystique from the X-Men series. So they take off in the Chaotix chopper. Chaotix copter. I just call it a chopper because get to the chopper! So SBO goes invisible. Charmy creates a loud distraction by dropping some noisy items from a rooftop, that being tubas. And then Vector will climb the fence and meet them at the file storage building. And then they go in. SBO has an encounter with Rouge. Alright, so massacred tubas belonging to the gun marching band, filling the area with clattering noise. Yeah. What happens if you... What do you get when you drop a piano down a mine shaft? A-flat minor.
God damn it, Barb!
Vector and Charmy are found by the gun soldiers, while SBO is hidden because he's a ninja and can turn invisible because he is a fecking chameleon. So SBO decides to complete the mission alone. He makes his way to a building lined with power cables, slips through a window, and he tries to locate the files on ancient artifacts, and then he encounters Rouge. And it was Rouge who saved SBO's life back at the museum in Spiral Hill in the previous episode, after almost getting obliterated by Whisper. SBO says The enemy is unpredictable, as it would be easier to thank her if he didn't suspect her of being the thief herself. And then Rouge hands a file called the Red Spectre. And yes, that's Special Executive for Counterintelligence, Terrorism, Revenge, Extortion. That's from the James Bond 007 series, in case you're wondering, typing in the comment section, actually asking, what the fuck is this wolf boy talking about? Well, you know exactly what the fuck the wolf boy is talking about if you've seen all the Bond films, from Sean Connery to Roger Moore to Daniel Craig to Pierce Brosnan. And for those who play GoldenEye on the N64. So, Rouge is assisting on the mission. And she offers to have SBO partner up with her. But SBO's like, no fucking way, ho fucking Zay. Saying that Chaotix function best as a team and he wouldn't abandon them without good reason. So yeah, the whole no fucking way, ho fucking Zay. The first time I did that was in my Macaroni 76 film review of Alien, and I brought it back in Iron Man 2. So that's where I got no fucking way, ho fucking Zay from. Vector and Charmy are brought into an interrogation room where they come face to face with Gun Commander Abraham Tower. And it's not Commander Walters from the Sonic movies. They are two different characters. They are two completely different characters because Commander Walters doesn't have that condition with the brown eye and the blue eye, and he loves Olive Garden. And all of that. There is no Olive Garden in the game universe, because the games avoid pop culture references, unlike the movies. Hey, remember Professor Tori from Spagonia University, who came to the Chaotix in the first episode? Well, she's a double agent working for Gun. Kind of like Director Rockwell, played by Kristen Ritter or Jessica Jones. So, she is looking for the astroscopic lenses for Gun, and at the same time, she also wants to help out Vector and Charmy as best she can. And Commander Abraham Tower is also voiced by Roger Craig Smith, as heard in Sonic 8 Shadow Generations Dark Beginnings. He was voiced by somebody completely different in Shadow the Hedgehog. So, let's see here. Commander Tower asks Vector about SBO's whereabouts, and Vector claims that SBO wasn't involved in the mission, and then Tower wants to know why they thought it was acceptable to trespass and vandalize gun property, and Vector doesn't know how to respond, and then Vector's like, get me the fuck out of here! And also, earlier on in this little podcast episode, they make a nod to the Find the Computer Room gag from Shadow the Hedgehog, which is what Vector says in Shadow the Hedgehog. And I know the voice of Vector from 4Kids passed away recently. So, let me look up exactly the name of the guy who voiced Vector in Sonic X. So, Jimmy Zappi was the English voice of Vector the Crocodile in Sonic X. James Carter Cathcart was his name. He passed away on July 8th, 2025. He was 71 years old. He died of throat cancer after receiving hospice care. So, rest in power, the original voice of Vector the Crocodile. But was he the first voice of Vector the Crocodile? No, he wasn't. Mark Biaggi in Sonic Heroes. Dan Green from 2007 to 2010. Keith Silverstein from 2010 to the present. So Keith Silverstein is who we're listening to in this podcast. Keith Silverstein is Vector. Matthew Mercer is Espio. Colleen O'Shaughnessy is Charmy. And then we have Roger Craig Smith, Mike Pollock, Dave B. Mitchell as Knuckles, Krista Lee as Professor Tori, Kate Higgins as Mrs. Knackerworth and Wave the Swallow. Kate Higgins was the previous voice of Tails before Colleen O'Shaughnessy took over in Sonic Boom. So Kate Higgins voiced Tails from Sonic Colors, the original Sonic Generations, Sonic Lost World, and then in Sonic X Shadow Generations, Colleen O'Shaughnessy redubbed Kay Higgins' dialogue, because there's brand new dialogue in Sonic X Shadow Generations, for at least for Sonic Generations. A lot of the dialogue has changed. Like, Knuckles doesn't ask Classic Sonic or Shonic if he gained weight after completing Sky Sanctuary. So, let's see here. Let's continue on with the plot. So, Professor Tori comes in and reveals herself as an acquisition specialist for Gun. She was ordered to secure the astroscopic lenses at any cost. She enlisted the Chaotix to help locate them more quickly. Suspecting the thief had a connection to Sonic and believing the team might uncover leads that would accelerate their search. And then Vector has the impression that Tori was like, "Oh, Anna, if only there was someone out there who loved you." The coldest thing to ever be said by someone we thought we could trust. So let's see here. So Soldier calls Tower away, and then Tori apologizes to Vector and Charmy, and Professor Tori still assures them that she's on their side and wants the artifacts secured safely under Gun's protection. And Tori is a little busy, but she does believe in the Chaotix and promises to try to secure their release, and hoping they'll forgive her one day. So there is still good in her. And then, as Vector and Charmy try to come up with an escape plan, they say, "You can go, but don't trespass again. Because I'm going to give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly, yellow, no good keister off our property before we pump your guts full of lead. Keep the change, you filthy animal." So Vector and Charmy reunite with Espio, and they board the Chaotix copter so Espio can share what he learned from Rouge. And Espio is disheartened because Rouge knew that he was there, so he views the mission as a personal failure because he feels his stealth skills are being humiliated by Rouge. Vector tries to lift his spirits, pointing out that at least he wasn't captured and the team have a new lead on the thief. But Espio is like, "I don't know." And then Vector vents his frustration about Tori's apparent deception, and then the Chaotix copter has a bunch of engine failures, and it's beginning to crash down. And we have no idea where they crash land to, because we will find out in the next podcast episode. I have been having a whole ton of fun with this podcast series, and I would imagine that people growing up in the 1940s, 1950s are feeling the same way over their radio dramas, like radio noir dramas. I'm not sure if anybody from that era is watching this. Probably not, but they probably told you stories about listening to radio programs before television became the norm. But I love listening to this podcast series. It has been an entire blast from start to finish, and I can't wait to see more. So, what are your thoughts on episode 4 of Chaotix Casefiles? Have you listened to it yet? How did you listen to it if you did? Was it on the YouTube channel? Was it on Spotify? Was it on Apple Music? Was it iHeartRadio? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye!